Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We're very happy to see you all. This is the webinar for the call for proposal for deployment of multi-rotor unnamed aircraft in managed airspace. This is our second call for proposal of the Israel National Drone Initiative. The hosts are the Israel Innovation Authority, and I invite Robin to open this webinar, the CEO of the Israel Innovation Authority.
Thank you, Daniela. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are very glad to see such a participation in this webinar from Israel and also globally. For those of you who don't know the Israeli Innovation Authority, we are the governmental agency which is responsible for the competitiveness of the Israeli high-tech ecosystem. We are making direct investments in research and development projects, both in the academia and the industry, making sure that the Israeli high-tech remains in the forefront of technological disruption and leading the disruption in as many sectors and markets as possible. One of those identified areas is certainly using the aerial environment for economical activity, and this is why we embarked on this initiative of the drone, or the drones. In the past 2 years, we have created, together with our partners from the industry and from the government, we believe one of the world's leading technological and regulatory sandboxes to encourage the usage of those drones for commercial applications, which will improve the supply chains, improve the traffic jams, and reduce gas emissions and many other benefits that can be drawn out of this initiative. Our goal for this project is to reach a stage of a commercial national drone network that will enable operations in dense urban environments while collaborating with other users in a safe and efficient manner. And again, in order to achieve all the benefits that I have mentioned before. We have already gathered a lot of experience in previous rounds and the previous call for proposal in various cities across the country. And in this step, we aim to expand into heavier payloads, longer distances, and also even early evaluation of urban air mobility for humans. So really pushing the envelope of technological innovation, while again, the aim is to reach a commercial stage of such activity in the country to get all the benefits. So again, I'm very happy to see the attendance, and I'm sure that great things will get out of this call of proposal and from the participants of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dror. Now is with us is Yoel Felcho, the Director General of the Israel Aviation Authority, the regulator behind this all.
Welcome, everybody. I assume that some of you are familiar with the project, and for those who are newcomer, welcome as well. We in the Israeli Civil Aviation Authority are proud to be an active partner in the second Israeli National Drone Initiative stage. In the second stage, we shall deal with more complex issues, USSP and CISP, certification, heavier drones, long distances, managed traffic, or as it known, urban air mobility, and new unique air navigation services for them, variaports, and many more topics. In the previous drone initiative stage, we have proved that based on our strong professional background and years of experience in the drone area, we were able to provide the participants an advanced playground or sandbox, as you call it, for a new initiative without compromising safety levels. Our goal is to assist the ecosystem and our partners and our participants in the initiative to become world leader. And at the same time, we encourage cooperation and sharing our experience with our international partners, EASA, Eurocontrol, FAA, and ICAO. We do expect that the data collected from the INDI pilot program will help us to formulate better regulations and procedures for the benefit of our stakeholders. Wish you all a good luck and productive outcome. See you in Israel. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Daniela Partem. I'm the head of the C4E Israel. And before we leap into the second phase, I wanted to give you a short background about the initiative and what we've done so far. And the people following me will tell you much more about the second phase and everything I hope you need to know. So what is our vision? I think some of you have started the way with us and have been with us for 2 years, and some of you, I guess, are new. We do want to promote the use of drone commercial applications in social environment, and create an economic impact. We want to allow the flights in an urban environment, cities like Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Berlin, and New York. I mean, I could refer to every urban city in the world, and hopefully we'll be able to see flying drones in the near future. In order to create that, we had to create a collaboration with many different entities in Israel, from the public sector and the private sector, in the goal to, first of all, we have to create an economically viable ecosystem. I think you as companies and also regulators and whoever is with us today from Israel and around the world understand that we have to create an economically viable service. Otherwise it will be hard to develop this technology and the ecosystem with it. We want to create a large-scale economic impact. We want to improve people's lives, give them better services with less pollution and less time, and see how this new and amazing technology can really change our lives in many aspects, such as if you do want a delivery of a hamburger taking place and you want it in 15 minutes and you want it warm and fresh, and so you only have to press an app and receive it via drone rather than via any other vehicle that pollutes the air and will take you a longer time to receive it. We think of many other applications that we can use this amazing technology to improve our lives. What we have to do in order to create that, majorly through the Israel Aviation Authority, is create the regulatory framework. And last but not least is really working on a global level and creating a global ecosystem. So Israeli companies and foreign companies can operate in Israel, and vice versa, that Israeli companies can operate in other countries and see this technology also affect other people's life, and not only in Israel, but in other countries as well. What we're trying to do is create a framework together with regulation, technology, resources, is to enable this ecosystem to thrive. And that's what we've been doing in the past 2 years with, on one hand, the regulator, creating the regulatory infrastructure, the Israel Innovation Authority with the Ministry of Transport, who are putting a lot of resources, and other entities and collaboration that we've been doing with government and private sector that does invest in the sector, and of course, all of this to boost the technology for the good of the people. With us today and with us for the past two odd years are the Ministry of Transport, Ayalon Highways, the Israel Aviation Authority, the Israel Innovation Authority, the C4E and World Economic Forum, and of course the ecosystem, the industry, the private sector, and more public entities that have been participating with us in this wonderful project. A bit of numbers, and then we'll take a leap to the next stage. We've been operating for 2 years all over the country. We've had 6 major demo sessions that each one operated for 2 weeks. We've operated in more than 7 municipalities in Israel, main municipalities, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Hadera, Herzliya. As you see, we have been operating also in central cities and also in periphery areas. So I think because we believe this technology should operate everywhere and affect everyone's lives. We collaborated with 18 hospitals around the countries. In our demos, we've done over 300 sorties a day. And in total, in the past 2 odd years, we flew over 14,800 sorties all over Israel. That's now, once we finished our sixth demo that took place in Beersheba. We have many companies participating with us. 9 operators and 6 more companies. And this is the place to thank all the participants and all the collaborators, whether it's government or private sector, that you believe in the project and you want to invest in it. And many people invest their time and money and effort. Also the Israel Innovation Authority that made this all happen. And also each and every one of the team members who are with us today. So thank you very much. And now we'll move forward to the Israel Aviation Authority. Ami and Libby, you can share yours.
My name is Vika from the Israeli Civil Aviation Authority. I'm the head of Aerial Infrastructure Department and lately in charge of UTM space implementation in Israel. We recently published a document that we call the roadmap for at least the next 2 years regarding U-Space UTM implementation. It's on the Israeli website in Hebrew, and it could be made available in English. This is an advanced draft of the English translation. And I want to go through with you on the highlights in the next 7 minutes in this document. The first part is the background and the purpose of the document. Generally, the CAA see the emphasis on free market. We are following very strictly, trying to follow as strictly as possible the EU regulation, implementing regulation 664, the YASA, which talks very clearly about the competition between USSPs and practically all other stakeholders. So that's the first emphasis. Of course, we move on to talking about defining U-Space and all that comes behind it, all that it demands before it could be done. You have to see the many stakeholders in Israel, very challenging airspace, very challenging security needs, and we will be working, we have been working, we will be working with the Israeli Airport Authority, the Israeli Air Force, IDF, National Security. It's challenging, but possible. The roadmap later on emphasizes the regulation and the acceptable means of compliance. So notice of proposed amendment 2021-14, I believe. And in that NPA, there's also regulations mentioned from the ASTM, for example, 3548, regarding USSP, and another one I'll mention later on regarding the remote ID. So this is the first emphasis from the first page of the roadmap. Other emphasis, regulation and changing regulation in Israel takes time. In a stable parliament, in a stable government, it might take 2 years. We are not even in that stage. So we are talking about several years. That means that we have to use whatever we have. We have a lot, whatever tools we have a lot, and we've been using it, I think, successfully in the past 2.5 years. I think it was proven. So we are looking at, for example, the regulations that were meant for ANSP, for example, and the European Regulation 373. We are talking about exemptions, all that in the next couple of years until we have the proper regulation in place. And again, we will be, as I said, relying on ASTM, on ISO, on the NPA 2021-14 as the place we are going to be, the place we are aiming our regulation. A couple of examples: advisory pamphlets, permits, experimental, other regulations we are using in Israel. We will make use of all these tools in the necessary, of course, changes to try not to stop any process from going on. Last thing I want to emphasize is the things we will look at very carefully, and that is to prevent misuse of the airspace, which means if a drone company or a USSP cannot prove he's efficient, he's not blocking competition, there will be some consequences for that. A flight plan has to be short and efficient without imposing unnecessary limitations. If one USSP is managing the U-space and after a couple of months a second one comes, there has to be cooperation from the first one, full cooperation, not to block competition. So this is the second thing that we are emphasizing, because we are looking at the stage where the maturity is not full yet. We didn't reach a complex market with 3, 4, 50 USSPs on Tel Aviv. So the way things will start has to be very efficient, and we will look to it very carefully. These are the last articles. Last one is regarding the activities that we see as a high priority for us. In the current set of cost-benefit business case analysis, we are not still probably in a position where someone can order coffee and it will be worth to get the coffee with a drone or a pizza or a hamburger. So the things that we think will have priority is different public services, first responders, police, medical, home security, municipality for inspectors and in a municipality crew. These are the things that will provide most of the logic, and this is the thing we will give the priority to. It's very sexy and interesting to talk about the pizza delivery to my home in my kibbutz, but we're not there yet, and we shouldn't take too much emphasis on that because the profits are still not there. That's the last bit of the document. The last is an illustration of the architecture. 2 points about that. Regulation 664 offers either a choice to be with CIS or without CIS, Common Information Service Provider. In Israel, we think right now that there should be one channel between all the outer world and the USSP, call it synchronization service, call it CIS. It's not a fully distributed architecture. So that's the only emphasis we see on a model with CIS or a synchronization service, depending how you call it. That's for me. Ami, your role.
Hi, everyone. Just 2 really short notes. My name is Amvais. I'm from the Airworthiness Division at CAI, and we handle all the approvals for the aircraft and systems that fly in Indy and everywhere else. The Israeli companies have access to all our services and, of course, access to all the regulations. They're in Hebrew. Foreign companies, that's what I wanted to highlight here, is foreign companies that either operate UAS or the eVTOL aircraft and would like to participate. We really encourage you to reach out to us to CAI so we can look into each specific case and build a bridge between where you are today and how you may operate within the Indie effort. That's it for me for now. Thank you.
Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Ami. Now with us is Vika Goldsman from the Israel Innovation Authority. He will present the call for proposal framework.
Hi, everybody. I'll share my screen. Can you see it? Great. So hi, everybody. My name is Vika Goldsman. I'm the VP Growth, Acting VP Growth of the Israel Innovation Authority. I will present you with the call for proposals. So as you can see here in the browser, this is the page of the call for proposals. You can find here everywhere, and I'll go over at least part of it. Okay, this is the call for proposals. This is, you can find here, this is the page, the internet page of the Indie of our initiative. From here, you can find your way to the call for proposals in English, and for the local Hebrew speakers. So this is the call for proposals in Hebrew, and all of them directing to here when you can find all papers needed for submission. So as for the call for proposals, at the bottom of the page, of the final page here, you can find all submission files. This is something I've just mentioned here, okay? I'll refer later about which language should you use to fill it. One moment. You may fill the majority of it except for the first two sections, which should be in Hebrew. The rest of it, you can fill it in English, okay? Now, as for the call for proposals, so our Indie project, in our Israeli collaborated pilot, the Indie project, all relevant government entities, as you can see, have joined together to enable a large sandbox for all stakeholders in order to make it feasible to experience an environment that almost perfectly mimics the real world reality. And one thing that I would like to mention before I start is a very important power multiplier is the model that we operate of adaptive regulation, which allows the regulation to be refined while the technology develops without waiting years and sometimes decades. Now, as for the call for proposals, we call it the 150-150 call for proposals, aiming for 150 kilometers flights or 150 kilograms vehicles. The program is intended for Israeli technologies companies in operation, command, control, tracking, drones, unmanned aircraft networks management, and airspace management, including advanced software solutions and their cyber protections, designed to operate in and or between urban areas. And also for companies capable of bringing, licensing, and flying suitable platforms for the purpose which I've just mentioned. As for foreign companies, meaning not local, not Israeli, interested in taking part in the demonstration.
I mean, Zvika, we can't see. Can you stop share and resume share? Probably we see an empty page. Oh, now we do.
Now we, okay. And now not?
Now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Now?
Yeah, now we see. Now it's fine.
Now you see the internet page?
Yes.
Okay, odd. Anyway, as for foreign companies interested in taking part in the demonstrations, you are more than welcome to do so and receive regulatory support without direct financial support from the initiative. A foreign company must be represented by licensed aerospace operator in Israel who shall assume responsibility for all licensing operations required, as well as operation in practice. In case you need any help in finding one, please mail us and we will do our best to connect you. You can find here in the call for proposals emails. This is the email of the initiative and the emails of Meital and Daniela. Meital from Ayalon Highway and Daniela from the C4IR and the C4IR. Now, as for the call for proposals, please note that there are, you can find in the call for proposal at the bottom of it, okay, here, you can find an attachment. This is attachment of the appendix. Okay, this is very important. You can find find one also in Hebrew, in the Hebrew call for proposals. Okay, here. Okay. Anyway, please note that there are 7 different relevant pillars you may submit. Development, production, and embedding of platforms that have yet to be flown in Israel, emphasizing flight ranges and increased cargo loads, as I mentioned before, interfaces and development of regulation between organizational bodies and various application levels, proof of delivery to named party, cyber protection components, operation of landing grounds for heavy unmanned aircrafts or eVTOLs, NCTR abilities, and operations of one of more of the previous, which I've just mentioned. Please note that in addition to what is specified in the program page, I mean here, okay, here in the program, in addition to these files, the companies are also expected to submit an appendix to the application submission response to this, as a response to the second call for proposals, and you may attach it as a zip file, okay? And Haleli might say a few words about it later. Another last important thing which I want to mention is that when you fill in the submissions, the tasks, there's a section of tasks, section 10, okay? Please note that, please note to which pillar the task belong, meaning that each and every company can submit to different pillars of the 7 I've just mentioned, okay? Please note each and every task to which pillar does it belong, including one general pillar, okay, for the general activity. So in case that we, as the committee, decide to choose only part of the pillars you've submitted, which is possible, so we will be able to budget it correctly. So just last time, here, this is the internet page of the initiative. You can find your way to the call for proposals, which we've just went over in the last few minutes. This is the page of the call for proposals in Hebrew. And you can find your way here when you can find all papers and explanations in Hebrew as for the program. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vika. Now the Ayalon Highways would explain the process that you have to go through applying to them in parallel to applying to the Israel Innovation Authority.
Thank you, Daniela. My name is O. I'm the head of tenders and contracts department in Ayalon Highways. So basically, Ayalon Highways is the initiative executive branch, and we actually operate the national pilot site. Participants who wish to join the call for proposals of the authority needs to enter beforehand into an agreement with Ayalon Highways. Since we are just a different legal entity and have to enter in an agreement because of legal and other insurance with that, we also published a call for proposals, which is very technical and straightforward, and not a lot to fill in the forms of Ayalon Highways. So please note that there are two different calls for proposals, one of Ayalon Highways and the major one of the authority itself. Next slide, please. So in the call of proposals of Ayalon Highways, you can see two primary documents, the call for proposals itself and the agreement. Meital, can you please move to the next slide? Okay. So within the call for proposals, there is explanation about Ayalon Highways as a company and the collaboration with the authority and the initiative. And you can find additional information and appendices that you will have to sign, such as absence of conflict of interest, a letter of commitment, and affidavit concerning the threshold requirements that outlined in the authority website. We are not, in this instance, the Ayalon Highways calls for proposals, we are not checking whether you are fulfilling the requirements set forth by the authority, just that you are aware to the threshold requirements and that you can adhere to them. In addition, you also will have to attach a short bio about your company, and if you want, it is optional to propose some pilots to be performed together. In addition to the call of proposals, as I said, there's also the agreement. The agreement which you will sign when you submit the call for proposals to Ayalon Highways. And after we will check all the appendices and affidavits that are filled correctly, we will also sign the agreement which you submitted. And with this agreement, you can submit to the primary call of proposals, the authority call of proposals, as an LOI on behalf of Ayalon Highways. So basically, I'll try to make it clear. If you will sign the agreement with Ayalon Highways, you don't have to submit an LOI. Only the agreement with Ayalon Highways will suffice. Lastly, we are to submit and to connect with Ayalon Highways regarding this call of proposals. We are using an online system called the DECL system. You can find all the information regarding this system within the call of proposals published by Netivei Ayalon. If you have any clarifications, requests, anything you wish to amend in the call of proposals or the agreement, please, you are more than invited to suggest any amendments through this system, and we hopefully will answer shortly to please all your needs. Next slide, please. So the clarification, you can submit clarification questions until July 12th, and the deadline for submission to Ayalon Highways call of proposals is July 24th. We will do our best to respond as fast as possible, so you can make all your arrangements to submit your proposal to the authority. Thank you very much.
Hi all, thank you very much. Now Ofer Lapid will present to us the technological challenges of our next step. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Quick reminder, just a second. Quick reminder why we're here. We have our goal set up almost 3 years ago to create a regulatory certainty to the ecosystem, and that is the paper you saw from the CAAI, which paves the way for the future. Enable UES and UEM solutions for societal and economical impact. We actually are measuring ourselves by the impact of our actions. We will create a national low altitude automatically controlled airspace because there is no way to control so many airplanes by humans. And we have been and we will continue to transition from catching up with the world into leading the innovation and the implementation of our system, and accelerate toward an economic and viable ecosystem. We will for sure help reduce congestion on roads and support the periphery in Israel by providing timely supply chain. Just a second. Cool. Just a recap where we come from and where we are today. We started more than 2 years ago, 2020, with visual line of sight drones supporting primarily hospitals, and we were able to perform 700 flights over the whole year of that COVID year, learning how to cope with the presence of that pandemic. Then we moved to the very large demonstration that is running still with 300 flights per day, with 16 companies, with a software that is running the drones, no sticks involved, multiple USSPs, DSS, etc. But we are getting it even larger. We will be using the U-Space pretty much exactly as it is in the European standard. We will combine air traffic management, vertiports, and in the coming 2 years, we will expand our reach in all measurable ways. The intent, of course, is by 2025, have a viable ecosystem with all the certification readiness pending the legislation, of course. And you know, legislation is just outside the technical people. It's a governmental issue. So we will be expanding our reach on many dimensions. We will interconnect U-Space bubbles throughout the ATM controlled spaces automatically, of course. Our nationwide flight plans through the automatic interfaces. We will fly larger payloads. You can see that we aim to have larger payloads and longer distances. We'll train non-cooperative drones. We'll support flight permits and tracking of single drones. Suppose you only have one recreational drone or photography, that will be also supported. We will demonstrate automatic proof of delivery. We will explore cyber threats and their mitigation. And of course, urban air mobility, which will be a first for us. So some friendly suggestions. If you plan to submit with us, you should read those two iconic documents, the NPA 21.4 and the NPA 22.06. This is the way the Europeans perform their rulemaking. We intend, to the best we can, to adhere to those ruling. Please read those documents and know them, because this is what is going to happen in the next 2 years. Over here, Israel chose to adhere to the European regulations where practicable. We will be demonstrating long-distance flight paths transcending U-Space bubbles. We still don't know exactly how, but we will be developing that technology by adapting existing technologies to our specific use cases. And we will integrate UAS and UAM flights with the incumbent air traffic management industry, actually digitizing the analog world, which is human controlled. And of course, we will be demonstrating vertiports and UAMs on the regional and urban scale. The challenges that are still open is what exactly will be the measures of cyber protection, which is the state of the art. Please make sure that if you propose for that, you will mention that. And which are the international standards and norms that exist? We are not looking to invent the wheel. We are looking to adopt norms and standards that exist. Same for automatic proof of delivery. What is state of the art for medical deliveries, for meals, or for groceries? We would not be inventing the wheel. We will try to adopt norms and standards. So same for non-cooperative drone detect and track. Don't propose something which is specific to DJI, specific to SAI. We are looking for generic solutions that can see any non-corporate drone, see it and track. And again, for a single drone operation, we're looking for the simplest way to integrate drones by application on your smartphone or any way that you think of to the ecosystem. Sure enough, a remote identification will be mandatory, I hope soon. And that will be all for now. I will pass it back to Daniela.
Thank you, Ofer. Just Zvika wanted to add something shortly before we move to Aleli.
Yeah,
Dror.
Yeah.
Sorry, before we move to those.
Okay, I'll mention it anyway. Please note that as mentioned in the call for proposals, and this is a very good break because I'm sure that you'll remember it. The submission it will be closed at the 22nd of August at 12 noon, exactly. At noon, not at midnight, okay?
Israel time.
Anyone who will be late, even in 1 minute, we won't be able to accept his submission. It's not a question of goodwill. We just can't do it. It's a legal question. Okay, so the 22nd of August at 12, exactly at noon, please don't be late even in 1 minute, and please don't start filling the submission at the morning of the 22nd. Please open a user a week, 2 weeks before the submissions. Start to see that you know how it's working, and upload your submissions as fast as you can. Please don't wait for the last day. Thanks.
Thank you, Zvika. This is one of the most important points in this conversation. And I gather that I would hope that the submissions will start earlier, and definitely if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. There's an email on the website. So really don't get to the last moment. Dror Ben David will be presenting next.
Good morning. I'd like to discuss a few things which are quite technically detailed, but I think they are important. The first and two major pillars are the platforms, as was already mentioned. With respect to the platforms, we are moving in a two-pronged manner. One is to get larger UAVs, aiming at 150 kilometers, 15 kilograms payload. And the other is having large eVTOLs capable of carrying either personnel or cargo. We will be very happy to get proposals from those both approaches. The second important pillar is all the setup and the architecture of the different command and control systems, so to speak. With that respect, we feel that we have quite a good feeling about what we already did, and I would like to discuss that for a second. On the left side, we are seeing what is called UTM in the United States and USSP in Europe, standing for Use Space Service Provider. And we feel that we have, so to speak, enough information and understanding how to build it. We already did it for 6 times. We have 4 different companies that are being tested. And it has been done in a specific use space declared by Civil Aviation Authority, and hopefully these will be actually deployed within the coming months. On the other hand, we have something that probably everybody are familiar with, is the larger airlines on the upper right circle. And these are totally separated. And even policy-wise, we would like them to be as separated as possible, meaning, for instance, that for the drones, we are putting remote identification that cannot be seen by the controllers of the airlines. So they will not be congested with something that for them is a nuisance. In Israel, there is only one ANSP. It's the Israeli Airport Authorities, and they will be joining us for the coming call for proposals. There are many others manned flights in the areas, and we are coping with them in different ways and parameters. These include the light and sport aviation, the paratroopers, dusters, CVFRs routes, And something that I think is quite unique to Israel, that there is all along the country, there are jet fighter navigation routes that cross all the low altitude. Helicopters are the major challenge because helicopters are getting into the use space in different circumstances. And as I mentioned before, we would like to incorporate the part of the urban air mobility into it. And this part is as well as the helicopters are getting into the different use spaces. If the previous slides we've seen, רק לאט קצת, עופר. In the previous slides we've seen it logically. This is the way it's actually been depicted on the map of Israel. The FAR is this dotted line on the left. And there are many different things that you need to take into consideration. The terminal maneuvering area entering from the west to Ben Gurion Airport. The corridor going to Eilat along the Dead Sea in southwest. The different CDRs, no-fly zones, supersonic lines, the jet fighter corridors. We don't have VFR in Israel. That's an important notion. It's a major advantage for Israel because we don't need to separate from VFR. We know about every manned flight because of our security surroundings. There are UAS routes serving both the Air Force and civilians. The black polygons are jet fighter training areas, and the largest nuisance from the point of view of UAM and drones is the helicopter training areas depicted here in pink. Bottom line, what we would like to do during the coming 2 years is to able to share information seamlessly with the Israeli Airport Authority and the Air Force in such manner that we will be able to crisscross all the country in UAM routes by dynamic restructuring of the airspace, and that's a major challenge. And we think we can do it. As was already mentioned, with the drones, we did almost 15,000 sorties, and we have a good grasp of what needs to be done. But a company that gets into it needs to have the different clearances and the different capability to have a thorough and deep understanding of all the different things needs to be considered. The other thing, עופר, אני אנסה רגע לקחת את התצוגה. The other thing that I would like to review is the paper itself with a different emphasis. As you can see, אתם רואים את עמוד 5 עכשיו במסמך וורד?
כן.
As you can see now in page 5, that's the current existing system, and this is assumed to be baseline. So we're starting from here. We have something called multiple drone operating system that currently it is already approved by CAI to fly 4 drones, and we're aiming up to 10. This is the basic element. This is being run by the air operator certificate holder. All air operator certificate holders under a specific USSP that they choose to work with is similar to what I think everybody understands and knows. What's important here that we have already in place multiple USSP capabilities, which means that if you are, as an air operator certificate holder, already signed with something that, or with someone that you like because of business considerations, you can stay with him and they can fly in each and every use space declared by CAI. So the environment is having multiple USSPs, and you can work with you as the AOC, as the air operator certificate holder, can work with any one of them as you choose. They need to be serviced by common information services. It's mandatory to have remote identification following ASTM standards. And the aerial picture is shared with the Israeli Air Force, Israeli Airport Authority, CAI, and this way we can keep everybody happy in the sense that everybody knows about everybody else. The philosophy for drones is that the picture will not become a nuisance for the manned flights. UAM cross all that, and that's what we expect companies that submit for the second, what we call an area or second pillar, to be able or to help us decipher how to implement or install the UAM part. So basically what I've shown up in the last slide is assumed to be the basic capability starting. Another important issue, because it's it's written in a confused way, we plan to fly starting 2023 January. We are not waiting for 2024. That's an important notion. So companies that are flying, I don't know, let's say Matrice 600 in existing platform, we expect them to be able to fly 50 sorties per week, a week per month. Okay? If you are a specific company with a very unique platform, say a brand new eVTOL that has not been flown in Israel, of course, this does not apply to you. You will talk to your evaluator, explain what is your specific case. For instance, if it's a manned carrying platform and you'd like to have some test flights to test it in the Israeli Negev and only then move on to higher frequency flights, we will be able to support that. Israel has a unique setup. As I mentioned before, two things that you can find in Israel flying along is missile defense, which is always on and active, and GNSS warning as a mean of defense against rogue drones. So we have a mandatory requirement that your platforms are capable of flying even when GNSS is not there. You can address that by multiple different options. You don't need to keep on flying. You just need to prove that you can land safely, but being able to land safely is a mandatory requirement. A very interesting notion that I think we had it as a lesson learned from the Europeans is that the municipalities are a major player. We do not allow touching the ground without having a clearance from the ground owner, and in many cases it's the municipalities, and I think that's a major trend both for UAMs and for drones that is against the previous laws and so to speak constitution, is that the air is not only belongs to the federal level, but the municipalities have a call too, and that's an issue because most municipalities don't have the educated manpower to support that. Please do consider what needs to be done in that sense. So far, it worked for us quite nicely. There are definitions for minimum equipment. So if you're bringing a platform, most drones I think there are no drones that are type certified. So please take a look at that. We need at least 2 different GNSS receivers, as I mentioned, to cope with jamming. And the capability to receive at least 3 different constellations. If you would like to fly above built-up areas, we are allowing that pending energy-reducing parachute installed and pending that you have more than 2,500 flight experience. Otherwise, we will be able to give you routes which are above empty land, and by that, reducing the risk. We dictate the allowed separations, and again, from the point of view of the laws, it goes by that CAI grants us the authority to declare use space for the place where we are flying at. Within that use space, you have mandatory requirements through the tender. And as for separation, and that I think is a brave move from all of us, but we are working this way. And as I mentioned before, we already did 14,800 sorties. We are allowing 60 meters, both lateral and altitude separation. Altitude is a major issue because most drones have the heritage of toys. So it's quite complicated. Nobody knows what the Chinese did in their different PCBs. So we're allowing only one layer of altitude separations being 60 meters. So one drone can fly at 60 and the other one at 120 AGL. For doing that, there are a lot of different things that you need to prove. I know that the EU is currently doing it under a separate program, but we are not using it as of yet. So please pay attention to separations. These separations are quite tight, I think, in most countries. Non-cooperative targets, basically, because we are supporting the industry and we would like it to flourish, we don't deal with the non-cooperative targets. Non-cooperative targets are the responsibility of the military, but we would like to have the capability to get all the relevant information and we did put an area that allows people to submit non-cooperative target recognition capabilities to, so to speak, supply security for specific routes. So people who can make either radars, ELINT, or whatever the case may be are encouraged to submit a proposal for that too. Cellular network coverage in Israel, it's much better than I think most countries in the world, but we require it on every specific sortie, so we'll know that you are under coverage. Most of our current existing drones are being both monitored and commanded through cellular networks. Most of it LTE generation 4. And along the paper, you will see that we would like, or we would give, or we would benefit, or prefer that you will have all the required lesson learned from our previous activities. It's called 5185, the one that we already did 6 out of 8. But even if you are not familiar with it, you can submit, because all the important ones are listed here in the different annexes and appendixes. So you can simply read it. As I mentioned before, touching the ground is a sensitive issue. You are not allowed to touch the ground unless the ground owner allowed it, or if it's within public domain, the municipality allowed it. And that concludes my part. There are a lot of details here. Basically, our current understanding is that each, or the MTBF, so to speak, is about 1 incident per 1,000 takeoffs and landings and per 1,000 hours of cruising. Our whole system and safety envelope is calculated so there will be no more than 1 death per 10 years all over Israel. We need you to help us with that. And for that, we need a very strict compliance with the rules that we dictate through the different tenders and papers. As I mentioned before, there is no type certification for drones yet. So everything here needs to be carefully calculated. And the last point, Ofer already mentioned it, but with respect to non-cooperative target recognition, bringing in the passive system of DJI is not good enough. So for that, for sure, you will not be entitled to have government funds. Please notice, okay? If you are answering the NCTR part, it needs to cover a more general solution. Thank you, everybody, and this concludes my time window.
Thank you very much, Dror. I would like to remind you, we're a few minutes ahead of time, which is great. I would like to remind you that if you have any questions for the Q&A, please ask them now. We will be answering written questions if there are. If they're not, we will conclude the session after Halili will tell us about the submission part. I just want to say that the next part will be held in Hebrew, since it's relevant for the applicants in Israel. It doesn't say that they, as we said prior in this webinar, foreign companies can still apply, but the process will be explained now. So thank you very much, everyone. And now,
Daniela, you reminded me something that I was asked to speak about and I forgot. For
foreigners,
Yes, for foreigners, you can always join the program if you are not asking for budget. It's an important thing. So if you miss the date or something and you still want to participate, you can directly contract through Iron Highways on a different route. So don't be discouraged, okay? If you missed August and you still want to be part of the game, we can allow that, but we cannot fund it, okay? Because the funding is being determined by the authority in a formal public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And hi, everyone. My name is Haleli Porat. And as Daniela said, since I'm addressing to the formal applicants, I'm going to speak in Hebrew and present my part in Hebrew. אז שלום לכולם, קוראים לי הללי פורט, אני מנהלת מחלקת קליטת בקשות שבעצם מטפלת את כל הבקשות החדשות שמגיעות בקולות הקוראים בחטיבת התפעול של רשות החדשנות, ובעצם המטרה שלי זה להציג לכם חלק יותר פרקטי על הגשת הבקשה. זה מן הסתם רלוונטי למי מכם שכבר החליט להגיש את הבקשה או שמשהו בהליך מטריד אותו, יש לו שאלות בנושא. אז יש פה בעצם הרבה טיפים ודגישים חשובים מאוד לנושא ההגשה, ההכנה של הבקשה, ודגישים שאנחנו מכירים מניסיוננו מול החברות המגישות. אני אגיד שאנחנו נשלח כמובן את המצגת הזאת לכל משתתפי הוובינר, אז יהיה לכם את המידע הזה, וכמובן תוכלו לפנות אלינו בכל זמן אם יש לכם שאלות שלא נענו במסגרת הוובינר הזה. אז נתחיל. אוקיי, אז פה בשקף הזה אתם יכולים לראות בעצם תרשים זרימה של בעצם תהליך גלגולה של בקשה, מה שאנחנו קוראים, של בקשה שמוגשת בעצם לרשות החדשנות ועוברת את התהליך. אתם נמצאים כמובן לפני הריבוע הראשון, לפני החלק של הגשת הבקשה, וזה מביא אותי לדגש הכי חשוב שאני יכולה לתת לכם, שצביקה כבר הזכיר קודם וגם אחרים הזכירו אותו, לעמוד בדדליין. תקדימו כמה שיותר את ההגשה שלכם, כמו שצביקה אמר, תקימו את היוזר שלכם, אם עוד לא הגשתם בקשה לרשות, שבוע, שבועיים לפני מועד הסיום, תכינו את המסמכים ותתחילו את ההגשה עצמה כמה ימים לפני. אנחנו לא יכולים לקבל בקשות שמוגשות אפילו דקה אחרי שעת הדדליין, שהיא 12 בצהריים, בתאריך ה-22 לאוגוסט 2022. זה הדבר שהכי כואב לכם בסוף, אחרי שהכנתם ועבדתם קשה על הבקשות ויצרתם את שיתופי הפעולה, בסוף אתם מפספסים את המועד, ואנחנו פשוט מנועים מלקבל את הבקשות. אז לתשומת לבכם. קצת על הכנת הבקשה ובמה זה כרוך. כאן יש בעצם ריכוז של לינקים למסמכים חשובים שאתם צריכים להכיר, צביקה גם יתייחס אליהם בחלק שלו. קודם כל יש את הקול הקורא, את פרטי הקול הקורא שבעצם מתמקד בחלקים האסטרטגיים או החלקים הטכנולוגיים, חשוב מאוד להכיר את הפרטים שלו. הקול הקורא בעצם ניתן להגיע אליו דרך דף המסלול באתר רשות החדשנות, זה בעצם דף אינטרנטי, חלק מאתר הרשות, שמפרט על המסלול עצמו, במסגרתו הקול הקורא הזה בעצם פועל. בדף המסלול אתם תוכלו למצוא את כל המידע על המסלול, כאמור לינק לקול הקורא, למסמכים המשפטיים שאתם צריכים להכיר, לנהלי הרשות ולמסמכי ההגשה. אז זה חשוב מאוד להיכנס אליו, לקרוא אותו בעיון, ובעצם לקבל את כל המידע ממנו. מסמך 3 זה בעצם הוראת מסלול ההטבה, מספר 2 נספח ב', שזה מסלול ההטבה לתמיכה משותפת עם משרד התחבורה, זה בעצם מעגן מבחינה משפטית את ההטבה, את התנאים למענק, את אמות המידה ואת תנאי הסף, ועוד פרטים חשובים אחרים. והמסמכים הבאים אלה בעצם נהלי רשות החדשנות ונהלי המסלול, שבעצם מסבירים באופן משפטי את כל נושא הגשת הבקשה, כללי התקצוב והדיווח, התקרות המוכרות, סעיפי ההוצאה המוכרים, נהלי התמלוגים, ועוד מידע מאוד חשוב ופרקטי שקשור להגשות ולתהליכים שלאחר ההגשה. אז אני יותר מממליצה להיכנס ללינקים האלה ולקרוא את הנהלים ולהכיר את כל הפרטים. אם אתם, מבחינת מי שיכול להגיש בקשה, אם אתם תאגיד ישראלי שנרשם בישראל ומבצע מו"פ לצרכים מסחריים, אתם יכולים להגיש בקשה במסגרת המסלול הזה והקול הקורא. עוד פרטים כמובן על תנאי הסף ואמות המידה, יש בדף המסלול וכמובן במסלול ההטבה. מפה אני עוברת על ההגשה עצמה. אז הכי חשוב לדעת זה שההגשה היא מקוונת, לרשות החדשנות יש בעצם מערכת מקוונת ייעודית, באמצעותה מגישים בקשות ובעיקרון באמצעותה מתבצע כל הקשר לרשות החדשנות. אתם כחברות צריכים להירשם למערכת הזאת ולהזין בעצם נתונים בנוגע לחברה, למגיש ולבקשה עצמה. כחלק מהגשת הבקשה יש לצרף את המסמכים הבאים שצביקה גם הציג קודם והם נמצאים בדף המסלול כמו שהראיתי. אז מסמך החובה הראשון והקריטי הוא טופס הגשת הבקשה, זה בעצם קובץ וורד בפורמט רשות החדשנות שהוא ייעודי למסלול הפיילוטים במסגרתו הקול הקורא הזה פועל. הטופס הזה בעצם מהווה את הלב של הבקשה מבחינה טכנולוגית ומבחינת היכרות עם החברה. בעצם יש בו הרבה סעיפים שמתארים את הצורך עליו הבקשה שלכם עונה, את יכולת החברה, את המודל העסקי שלכם, אם יש את הצורך בפיילוט, והחלק הכי חשוב שהוא הלב של לב הבקשה, זה בעצם סעיף המשימות שצביקה הזכיר קודם, סעיף 10, בעצם בסעיף הזה אתם נדרשים לפרט את רשימת המשימות, משימות המו"פ והפיילוט שיש לכם כחלק מהתוכנית המבוקשת, ודגש חשוב בנושא הזה שהוא קצת שונה מהגשות במסלולים אחרים למי מכם שמכיר, בעצם בסעיף הזה, בקול הקורא הזה, אתם נדרשים לפרט את המשימות ולשייך כל משימה לפילר הרלוונטי שהוזכר בחלקים הקודמים של הוובינר. כל פילר כזה וכל משימה כזו אתם צריכים לתקצב, כי כמו שצביקה הזכיר, ייתכן ואתם תאושרו באופן חלקי מבחינת אותם פילרס, ונדרש לתקצב את זה באופן מדויק. אם צביקה או אופר אתם רוצים לדייק פה משהו, אתם מוזמנים. המסמך החובה החשוב הבא זה תקציב הבקשה. בעצם מדובר פה בקובץ אקסל, גם בפורמט רשות החדשנות, שבעצם מבטא את נהלי הרשות והסעיפי ההוצאה המוכרים. אתם בעצם צריכים להוריד אותו ולמלא את הגיליונות השונים. כל גיליון מתייחס לסעיף הוצאה מוכר, כמו כוח אדם, קבלני משנה, ציוד, חומרים, התאמת מוצר ותיקוף שוק. כל הסעיפים האלה שאמרתי עכשיו ונשמעים לכם אולי לא ברורים, יש עליהם פירוט מאוד רחב ומפורט בנהלי הרשות ונהלי המסלול, אז אני ממליצה מאוד לקרוא אותם. חשוב מאוד להגיש את אקסל התקציב מלא ומפורט. מסמך החובה הבא שאתם נדרשים להגיש כחלק מההגשה המקוונת הוא מכתב הצהרת כוונות, LOI, Letter of Intent, בעצם ביניכם לבין אתר ההרצה שאיתו אתם משתפים פעולה בביצוע הפיילוט, אם יש לכם כזה. אם זו פעם ראשונה שאתם מגישים לרשות החדשנות בקשה, אתם נדרשים להגיש תעודת התאגדות, ואם יש לכם בקשות נוספות במקביל עם תקופות ביצוע חופפות ברשות החדשנות, אתם נדרשים גם להגיש טופס ריכוז משאבים, שזה בעצם גם קובץ אקסל שמפרט את תכולות הציוד וכוח האדם שיש לכם בכל אחת מהבקשות. אופר, אתה רוצה להגיד משהו?
I wish to add some information after you're done, so just after you.
אז דיברנו בעצם על ההגשה המקוונת ועל המסמכים הנדרשים להגשה, מסמכי החובה, וכאן בעצם אתם יכולים לראות כמה דגשים טכניים כלליים להכנת הבקשה עצמה. אז קודם כל אנחנו ממליצים מאוד ובאחריותכם לוודא שאתם עומדים בתנאי הסף ובאמות המידה למסלול. אני מזכירה שמדובר במסלול 2 נספח ב' וניתן למצוא אותו בדף המסלול. אנחנו מאוד ממליצים למלא את הבקשה ובמיוחד את אקסל התקציב לצד קריאת נהלי הרשות ונהלי המסלול. שימו לב שבעצם כל עוד לא נאמר אחרת בנהלי המסלול הספציפיים, ההכרה בהוצאות היא בהתאם לנוהל מערכת הכספים וההוצאות המוכרות, שזה אחד הנהלים שבעצם הצגתי קודם, חשוב מאוד להכיר אותו. בכל בקשה שמוגשת לרשות נדרשת החברה שמגישה להגדיר תקופת ביצוע מבוקשת, שזה בעצם מסגרת הזמן שבמסגרתה תבוצע הפעילות המתוכננת. אני אתן על זה דגש וגם על התקציב, על נושא התקציב ממש בשקפים הבאים. עוד דגש להגשה עצמה, כשבעצם אתם נכנסים למערכת המקוונת וצריכים לבחור, יש הרבה מסלולים לרשות, אז אתם בעצם צריכים לבחור את שם המסלול הרלוונטי כשאתם מבצעים את ההגשה. אתם צריכים לבחור במסלול שכותרתו היא תמיכה בחדשנות טכנולוגית של התעשייה, בשיתוף עם גורמי ממשל, בסוגריים פיילוטים. ברגע שאתם בוחרים את המסלול הזה, יוצגו לכם המסמכים הרלוונטיים שהצגתי קודם להגשה, וגם השדות המקוונים הרלוונטיים למסלול הזה, למשל שדות שקשורים לאתר הפיילוט שלכם, אתר ההרצה. באופן כללי חשוב מאוד למלא את כל הנתונים והשדות בטפסים, אם יש משהו שהוא בעלי לא רלוונטי, לציין שהוא לא רלוונטי, אבל תצאו מנקודת הנחה שאם יש סעיף שאתם מתבקשים לענות עליו, הוא נדרש לצורך הבדיקה המקצועית והדיון בוועדת המחקר. אז נדרש באמת למלא את הכל, אלא אם כן זה במובהק לא רלוונטי עבורכם, ולהקפיד שהנתונים זהים, כמו נתונים כמו תקציב מבוקש, תאריכי תקופת ביצוע ונושא הבקשה, להקפיד שהם זהים. אוקיי, אז קצת דגשים למי שלא מכיר את האופן שבו רשות החדשנות פועלת, אז בעצם מה זו תקופת ביצוע? זו בעצם, כמו שאמרתי קודם, מסגרת הזמן בה תתבצע הפעילות המאושרת, ובעצם רק במסגרתה רשות החדשנות יכולה להכיר בהוצאות עבור התוכנית המאושרת. לכן אתם נדרשים להגדיר את תקופת הביצוע המבוקשת שלכם בעת הגשת הבקשה בכל המסמכים, בטופס הוורד, באקסל התקציב ובבקשה המקוונת. כלל מאוד חשוב לתקופת הביצוע, זה שבעצם מועד ההתחלה של החודש שבה היא מתחילה, יכול להתחיל הכי מוקדם מהחודש בו מוגשת הבקשה המלאה והתקינה. זאת אומרת שאם אתם מגישים בסוף חודש יולי, אתם עדיין יכולים לכלול את חודש יולי כחלק מההכרה בהוצאות, ובעצם להגדיר שתקופת הביצוע שלכם מתחילה מיולי. אבל אם אתם מגישים כבר ב1 לאוגוסט את הבקשה המלאה והתקינה, אתם לא יכולים לכלול את יולי במסגרת תקופת הביצוע, ואתם נדרשים להגדיר אותה החל מאוגוסט. אתם יכולים גם להגדיר תקופה שמתחילה גם חודשיים, 3 או 4 חודשים קדימה, אבל אנחנו מצפים כן לראות בקשות שיכולות בעיקרון לרוץ מרגע האישור. אישור הוועדה אני מתכוונת. מה זה תקציב מבוקש? זה בעצם סך התקציב המתוכנן לביצוע התוכנית, התכנון שלכם, כולל המאצ'ינג. בעצם איך זה עובד? אתם ממלאים את אקסל התקציב בהתאם לתשומות המשוערות שלכם לתוכנית המבוקשת, ובעצם ועדת המחקר תאשר לכם מתוך התקציב המבוקש, היא תאשר לכם את מה שאנחנו קוראים תקציב מאושר, והיא גם תאשר את אחוז המענק. ההפרש בין אחוז המענק, שהוא לעולם אינו 100%, הוא בעצם, אז ההפרש בין המענק המאושר, סליחה, ובין התקציב המאושר, הוא המאצ'ינג, בעצם הוא מימון משלים שאתם צריכים להציג כאחד התנאים להפעלת התוכנית שלכם מול רשות החדשנות. שימו לב שבמסלול הזה אין הגבלה על התקציב המבוקש, אבל כמובן יש הגבלה על אחוזי המענק, שבעצם מפורטים בדף המסלול, במסלול ההטבה ובכל מקום אחר שאתם נדרשים למידע הזה. מפה אנחנו עוברים לצורך בעצם באמת במימון משלים, שבעצם הוא, כמו שאמרתי, מימון לתוכנית שאושרה לכם ושאתם כמגישי הבקשה, מקבלי האישור, צריכים להציג. המימון הוא על ידכם או על ידי גורם מממן אחר שהוא אינו יכול להיות גורם ממשלתי נוסף או רשות החדשנות במישרין או בעקיפין. המימון המשלים יכול להיות להתקבל על ידי משקיע חיצוני, על ידי תזרים המזומנים שלכם, הלוואות, צפי הכנסות וכדומה. חשוב מאוד להגיד שכבר בעת הגשת הבקשה אתם צריכים להיות בעלי יכולת להראות מימון משלים, הוא לא חייב להיות סופי ומוחלט, אבל אתם כן צריכים להראות עתודות באיזשהו צפי ליכולת מימון. אוקיי, אז דיברנו על הדגשים להכנה, על המסמכים, על הגשה המקוונת. מה קורה אחרי שהכנתם את כל המסמכים, מילאתם את הטופס המקוון ולחצתם על שליחת הטופס המקוון. בעצם בשלב הזה הבקשה שלכם פוגשת אותי ואת הצוות שלי, מחלקת קליטת בקשות, ואנחנו מבצעות בדיקה ראשונית להגשה. אם הבקשה לא תקינה ונדרשים להשלמות ותיקונים, אנחנו נבצע דחייה של הבקשה במערכת, שבמסגרתה אתם בעצם תקבלו הודעה מפורטת שכוללת את כל התיקונים הנדרשים ואיך לבצע אותם, וההודעה הזאת תשלח לאיש הקשר שאתם הגדרתם בעת הגשת הבקשה המקוונת. שימו לב, וקריטי מאוד, שפרטי איש הקשר יהיו פרטים מדויקים ונכונים, אני מדברת פה על כתובת מייל, וחשוב מאוד שאותו איש קשר יהיה זמין בימים שלאחר שביצעתם את ההגשה, שיהיה זמין ויהיה מחובר למייל שלו כדי לקבל מאיתנו את ההודעה. שלא תפספסו אותה, כי בעצם ברגע ששלחנו לכם הודעת תיקונים, ואנחנו שולחים לכם גם דדליין לביצוע התיקונים האלה, ואם לא עמדתם בו, אנחנו לא יכולים לקבל את ההגשה שלכם, זה כמו לאחר בעצם לכל קורא. אז אם אתם מקבלים הודעת תיקונים והשלמות, ואתם או לא מבצעים אותה כמו שנדרש, או לא מבצעים אותה עד הדדליין החדש, אתם לא תוכלו להתקבל בקול הקורא. זה דגש מאוד מאוד חשוב, תהיו זמינים לתיקונים. וכמובן אם יש לכם שאלות בשלב הזה, תשאלו אותנו. אם הבקשה נמצאה תקינה, הוגשו כל מסמכי החובה והבקשה מולאה כראוי, אתם תקבלו מאיתנו אישור גם במייל וגם באזור האישי שלכם על הקליטה עם פרטים והנחיות להמשך התהליך, והבקשה תועבר אצלנו למינוי צוות בדיקה של רשות החדשנות והשותפים בקול הקורא. כל התהליך הזה בעצם מקליטת הבקשה, מהרגע שהיא הוגשה ונקלטה עד מינוי צוות בדיקה, אורך כ4 ימי עסקים, בדרך כלל לוקח פחות זמן. ושימו לב שבעצם צוות הבדיקה מחויב ליצור איתכם קשר בתוך כשבועיים ממינויו, אז אל תהיו לחוצים מדי אם עבר שבוע ולא יצרו איתכם קשר, אבל אם עברו שבועיים אתם יכולים לפנות אלינו אם לא יצרו איתכם קשר. בעיקרון בשלב בדיקת הבקשה הבדיקה כוללת בעצם 2 פעולות, הראשונה היא בדיקה טכנולוגית על ידי רשות החדשנות והמשרד השותף, ובדיקה פיננסית, בדרך כלל במקרים שבהם מדובר בחברה חדשה ברשות החדשנות שעוד איננה מוכרת. אחרי הבדיקה המקצועית בעצם הבקשות עולות לדיון בוועדת המחקר, את כל המידע הזה אגב אתם יכולים למצוא בנהלי רשות החדשנות, כל התהליכים האלה בעצם מוסדרים בנהלים. הוועדה דנה בבקשות ומקבלת החלטות האם לאשר או לדחות, ואם לאשר אז באיזה תנאים, ובעצם מי מכם שקיבל אישור הוא בעצם מתחיל עכשיו את תהליך של מה שנקרא הפעלת התיק, זה בעצם תהליך שבו אתם צריכים להוכיח עמידה בתנאים מקדמיים שנקבעו, שקבעה הוועדה, אתם צריכים להציג את המימון המשלים, ולאחר שתבצעו את כל הדברים האלה, אתם בעצם תוכלו לחתום על מה שנקרא כתב ההתחייבות ודף התקציב מול רשות החדשנות, ולקבל את כתב האישור ולהתחיל בעצם בביצוע וקבלת המקדמה, ולהתחיל לדווח את הדיווחים התקופתיים. למי מכם שזה יהיה רלוונטי, אתם תקבלו הדרכה בנושא, כל מי שיאושר ידע את כל המשך התהליך ויוכל לפנות אלינו גם אם לא ברור משהו. אם הוועדה החליטה לדחות את בקשתכם מכל סיבה שהיא, אתם תקבלו על זה גם מייל מפורט, זאת אומרת את החלטת הוועדה אתם תקבלו באופן מפורט, ותוכלו לשקול האם להגיש בקשה לדיון חוזר, שגם לה יש כללים משלה שנמצאים באתר רשות החדשנות. הזמן המשוער בין מועד ההגשה האחרון של הקול הקורא ועד קבלת התשובה הוא כ-11 שבועות, אז תהיו מוכנים. פה אני חוזרת בעצם לפלואו של הבקשה, דיברנו בעצם על תהליך ההגשה, הבדיקה ועד הוועדה ועד הפעלת התיק. אחרי שהפעלתם את התיק תוכלו לקבל מקדמה, להתחיל לבצע את הדיווחים התקופתיים כנגד ההוצאות שלכם ולקבל את יתרת המענק. סגירת התיק זה בעצם השלב האחרון שבו סיימתם את תקופת הביצוע שלכם, ביצעתם את כל הפעילות ואתם בעצם מגישים דוח כספי סופי ודוח טכנולוגי סופי, ורשות החדשנות בעצם בודקת שאכן ביצעתם את הפעילות שאושרה לכם, ובסוף הרבה אחרי סגירת התיק, אם תדרשו, מגיע שלב דיווחי התמלוגים שאני לא אכנס אליו בחלק הזה, אבל יש נוהל שלם שעוסק בתמלוגים, מי מכם שזה רלוונטי אליו. אני שוב מזכירה את הדדליין להגשה, 22/8/2022 בשעה 12:00 בצהריים. פה אתם יכולים לראות את המייל שלנו של מחלקת קליטה ויכולים להפנות אלינו שאלות בנושא נהלי רשות החדשנות, המסלול והגשת הבקשה. לשאלות בנושא התוכנית המוגשת ותנאי המענק אתם יכולים לפנות לחטיבת צמיחה שצביקה ודניאלה הם פה הנציגים שלה. ואם אתם צריכים עזרה בהגשה המקוונת בהרשמה, כאן יש את פרטי מערך הלקוחות שלנו שהוא מאוד זמין, עונה מאוד מהר ובצורה כה מקצועית, אתם מוזמנים לפנות אליו בכל עת. אני סיימתי, שיהיה הרבה בהצלחה לכולם.
Thank you very much, Eleni. Now we're starting our Q&A question part, our Q&A part. There are a few questions that were asked prior to this. I would like to refer to 2 questions and then also Lapid will be following. So first, we will share a recording of this webinar on our website. And you'll be able to see it and also the Q&A part of it. We will do our best to share also the slideshows that we have presented here. The second question that we received was about collaboration between Israeli and foreign companies. First of all, if there are any foreign companies or Israeli companies who would like to collaborate with each other or would like in general a collaboration, you're welcome to write to us. And we will do our best to connect you to other companies who are interested. We will discuss other options of creating this collaboration in the near future. And if there will be anything formal, we will definitely update our website and whoever participated in this webinar. If you have more questions for now, please write them down so we can answer them. We have some time to answer your questions, and this is a good platform. Please use it. All the members of the initiative are here. This is the time. Now Ofer will answer some of the questions that were asked.
So there was a misunderstanding what pilot means and what pilot site means, and I will give quick and how the pilot is conducted. So actually, what we usually do is that use a different entity to demonstrate the technologies through it. In that case, Iron Highways is pilot site or the pilot company. They are actually providing all the infrastructure, the manpower and the regulatory support, performing risk analysis, building the control center, manning the control center, and all of the subject matter experts that are surrounding the pilot. So they are the execution entity for the pilot. That is why you need to apply for them for a letter of intent, which means that you are qualified to submit through them to the pilot program. What happens in real life is that we are flying, we will be flying 1 week per month for 2 years with progressively, with scenarios that will be more and more complex from time to time. We will be flying all around the country. 1 week maybe in one city, the other week in a different city, maybe 1 week in one of our national ports, or even in a deserted airport. It's our choice, but it is based on collection of requirements from the participants. So if you have a particular business case, business justification, to fly in a particular scenario, in a particular geography, most probably that we will comply and accommodate that. Bear in mind that if you are flying to a commercial scenario or commercial-like scenario, you are not allowed to collect payment for those flights, as all the activity is covered by the pilot. So if you are flying, delivering pizza, you could charge the exact amount of the pizza, but you will not be able to charge for the flight itself, as we are not flying under commercial permit, we're flying under experimental permit with no possibility to collect charges. We have we have routine meetings with all the participants, debriefs, briefings, analysis, simulation meetings. We keep in touch throughout those 2 years over WhatsApp, over email, sometimes physical meetings. So once you are admitted, once you are selected, whether we paying or without payment, you're expected to participate in all those meetings, all those online meetings. And of course, you're expected to participate in the flight campaigns as well. I hope this answers the terminology and the flow of those coming 2 years. Back to Daniela.
Thank you, Ofer. Vika, would you like to answer, or you're answering?
I'm answering, but I will refer to one question that a few of you asked about the limit of the budget limit is the budget limit. So actually, the pilot at the bottom line, the pilot is limited. So of course, there should be the budget you ask for should be reasonable for what you're doing. Okay, but please do remember when you submit that you might get only 30% of investment from the Israeli Innovation Authority and the Ministry of Transportation. So take into account that if you ask for a specific budget, so you should be able to bring 70% of it. Okay, don't count on it that you will get 50% or more. Please, please ask for a budget which you think or you are even sure that you may fund or raise 70% of it by your own. So this was very important for me to clarify.
Okay, great.
Another comment, which is a friendly reminder to every participant who is winning. First thing you should do is get training in how to work with the Innovation Authority. This training is free of charge, and it is extremely valuable to your conduct. So keep it in mind, and as soon as you win, do this the first step. First thing you should do is get that training. With respect to companies looking for partners, please use our mailbox, which is in the call for participation. If you could not find any local partner that is acceptable or suitable, even though there are more than 200 registered air operators on the CAAI website, we will do our best to help with the matchmaking.
Another last thing, I was asked about what sort of activities do we support? Which kind of activities can you submit as part of the submission? So you can include any activity which is relevant to the pilot. Okay, either logistics, it might be logistics, it might be manpower, it might be everything. But what is the most important thing that there is a direct connection and it contributes to the pilot. Now, as for R&D, it's some of you might know or think that the Israel Innovation Authority usually will support R&D activities. In this program, it's a pilot program. So what we expect to see less R&D and more of pilot or engineering activities, okay? Not R&D. If you have limited R&D, which you must include in your submission, so you can do it, but please take into account that it affects the maturity of your product, meaning that as more R&D activities, it means that you're less mature, so your chances to get the investment is lower. Okay, I hope it was clear.
Okay, so let's see if there are any more questions. I see that we answered most of your questions or all of them. Last chance, if anyone wants to write something. If not, this is the good opportunity to thank everyone. First of all, the participants. Second of all, the companies that are taking part in this project, and all the team members of the initiative. Vika, Ofer, Ami, Livy, Leli, Meital, Daniel, Reut was not here with us, Dror, Liron, Yoel, Alex, Alan, who helped us with this webinar, Noah, Chagit, Michal. I hope I didn't forget anyone. It's a pleasure working with you, and it was a pleasure having this webinar. Hope to see you all soon. Feel free to write us if you have any questions. We're here to help. And good luck to everyone. Hope to see you in the air in a few months. Thank you very much.